This podcast is about getting spooked for fun, and the hosts aren't associated with the attractions discussed in any way, except for all those skeletons in my closet. Some of the topics we discuss may go from ghoulish to ghastly, so viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to the Great American Scream. Hey everybody, what's up, and welcome back to our YouTube channel where we talk about spooks and ghouls and ghasts and ghosts. Adam, what's up?
Our YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's our YouTube channel.
This is an audio
YouTube
medium
channel now, and we do top 10 scariest scarers.
But I record
of the day.
I don't think we can't do a YouTube medium because I record this podcast in my underwear.
So now you tell me. After I already have all of these YouTube sponsors that are ready to go. All right, enough with the goose. Hello and welcome to the Great American Scream. My name is Devin Wright.
My name is Adam O'Connell, and today we are going to take that cool 90s computer and ride the cyber waves into the internet.
Why is it a 90s computer?
You know how like all the things in the 90s where people got like sucked into TV shows or sucked into the computer, they were all from the 90s. That was the image that was in my head.
So now we're doing that, but with YouTube.
Yeah, now YouTube, not 90s YouTube.
Right, because that's not that was just a tube that you would hold.
Your tube.
Today we're going to talk about horror on YouTube.
Yeah.
This is the first part of what's going to be a 3-part miniseries, a podcast within a podcast, about the different aspects of horror on the internet. So we'll talk about horror in the age of the World Wide Web. The first episode is this one, it's YouTube. The next one will be video games. And then finally, we'll cover the world of creepypasta.
Yeah, the internet is a great place for any artist, any filmmaker, anyone who makes things to showcase their stuff. And thusly, it's become a great place for people who make horror things to showcase what they've made at different budgets, everything from big name directors to people just making some fun stuff on their computer on a Tuesday, and we can explore all of that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I don't know if it's come up a lot in this podcast, but we will talk about it next week with video games. There's a thing about horror, which is when a medium like the internet is created and is opened up, and the barrier to entry for creating media is lower than usual. The genre that gains the most from that is horror, because, at least in my opinion, mainstream culture does not do horror particularly well a lot of the time, because it serves as an average, a comfortable space for people to exist. So when more indie, more amateur, quote unquote, not in terms of quality, but in terms of, notoriety, when they have access to creating horror content, it's often far more compelling, or at least as compelling as the big names in the horror scene.
Yeah, and I feel like it's often more appreciated on the internet as well. I mean, you notice that at the Oscars, especially the past Oscars, we had films like Us and Midsommar, which were masterpieces and were not honored. And so I feel like the internet is a great place to, it's a place where horror is very often celebrated, and especially on YouTube, it's really exciting to see people sharing what they've made. Some of it is absolutely horrifying. Some of it's not that great. A lot of it is really, really good. Some of them are intentionally, as some of the ones we're going to talk about today, are intentionally created to be horror pieces. And some of them are just scary on accident, which is great and even scarier, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about a few different pieces. And I think from watching what I watched today from your list you gave me, I've watched some of these, growing up and stuff. But now as a grown man, I guess, as close as I can get, they kind of fall into a few different categories. One of them being just vaguely unsettling, which I think are the best in my opinion, as we'll talk about. And then there is the kind of flashy, in-your-face horror, which I personally don't like as much, but is still super, super, super interesting and super built to fit internet media, if that makes sense.
We're only going to be talking about stuff that was made for YouTube or became famous on YouTube. So nothing that's like a clip from a movie or a TV show or stuff that was
Right.
I'm not going to talk about any of those the videos that have gone viral that are like scary things interrupting news broadcasts. Well, I love those. I think they're very scary. That's not really like YouTube's medium. It just ended up on YouTube.
Right, and we won't talk about like Too Many Cooks, which like got popular on YouTube but was originally an Adult Swim sketch.
Eventually on this podcast we will talk about Too Many Cooks and Unedited Footage of Bear and stuff like that, but not this episode.
Yes.
Also, a lot of these are related to creepypastas and connected to them. So if we get there, I'll talk briefly about them. But since creepypastas are getting their own episode, we won't go too much into that.
Beautiful. What's our first piece of media?
Yeah, so the first thing I want to talk about, which is one of my favorite horror things on YouTube series videos, is Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared.
Of course, a classic. Came out when we were in 8th grade, I believe.
In 2011. So that would have been 7th or 8th grade. So it is a YouTube horror series consisting of 6 episodes by British filmmakers Becky Sloan and Joseph Pelling, who run a production company called This Is It. The first episode was released on July 29th, 2011. And as of today, the first video has 59 million views. That's
wow.
So many. So the episodes are
wild.
The episodes are formatted. The kind of shtick is that it's a children's television show using a mix of puppets and animation, mostly puppets, very similar to Sesame Street is like the immediate connection that you'll make. And each episode, there's these 3 characters, the red guy, the yellow guy, and Duck. And they are learning a new lesson from a new character that comes and sings a song about something you learn on a kid's show. So about like creativity, time, love, computers, healthy eating, and dreams are the 6 episodes. Obviously, like halfway through, they take a turn, usually a turn towards graphic violence. Like in the one about time, they start aging rapidly and their skin and hair starts to like melt and fall off. And then in the one about love, the one who sings it is a butterfly, tries to get the yellow guy to join this like love cult. It's like a soft comment on religion because they want him to join this cult so he'll be loved forever and never be alone. And then in the healthy eating one, the yellow guy ends up eating the duck.
Yeah.
Standard kid show
good
stuff.
For you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the filmmakers Sloan and Pelling met at Kingston University and made the first episode in their free time with no budget. It wasn't commissioned. It wasn't a project. They just made it.
Yeah, that's insane. Because as you have in the notes, the production like quality of that episode, I mean, all of them are top notch, but like that episode specifically, like it looks like there's a reason that it fooled all of my friends in 8th grade.
Yeah.
Is because it looks like a PBS set.
Yeah, it's beautifully done. The puppets are all hand-built and amazing. They eventually, after the first episode went viral, a second episode was commissioned by Britain's Channel 4. But after that, they turned down commissions for further episodes because they wanted to have freedom to kind of do what they want with the series. They didn't want to have to censor themselves or do a specific thing to please a sponsor or someone who gave them a commission. I did read, they eventually started a Kickstarter, and I did read a very funny tidbit about a 12-year-old boy who used a credit card number he found on the internet to try and donate £35,000 to this Kickstarter to make more Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared.
That's very good.
I love that boy. But
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the actual videos.
How many did you see? Because I know I sent you a couple of them.
I only watched one.
The first one?
I watched the one that I remember because I wanted to see if I still remembered it.
Mm-hmm.
I think this video started a kind of revival of this kind of horror on YouTube, in my opinion, of this like viral style that like Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared would end up on the featured page on YouTube, which is not normal for viral horror stuff for YouTube, but it kind of set this trend that other videos would follow, and it kind of got in right around the growth of horror video games on YouTube, as we'll talk about next week. But I have a problem with it, and it's not the creator's fault.
Mm-hmm.
I think that these are very clearly really well thought out pieces of art that are commenting on children's television.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, because of the way, especially in the past year or two, that children's YouTube has become a focal point of criticism. There is a real danger with pieces like Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, which are satire of children's television, but because of how discourse works, there are definitely people who think it's just supposed to be like to scare children. And obviously that's not the fault of the creators, but I do think it falls into this kind of pit of being inappropriate material that may prey upon children, even if that's not the intent.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of it in relation to kind of the modern thing of children's YouTube and what's happened to it. And I will say in that maybe it has aged a little weirdly.
Right.
But I feel like the original, because these also started to come out before we thought of YouTube as its own medium, like it being different from TV or different from film. Its own platform. So at the time, I feel like it wasn't necessarily commenting on children's YouTube, but corporate. Right. I think it's commenting on corporate influence in children's television, and it reflects in them not wanting a commission or a sponsor, because I feel like the characters in Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared are on a children's television show that is being corrupted by some outside corporate influence. That is because these singers that are violently pushing certain ideals as fact. It particularly comes up in the healthy eating episode, where I always thought of it as like when you see cereals and stuff advertised on children's television, how the characters in the healthy eating episode are saying like, oh, if you like pizza's a good food, never mind, pizza's a bad food, only eat this, never mind, that's a bad food, only eat this, depending on like the current sponsor.
Right.
But then thinking of it as a piece of like objectively just what it is by itself, I could see how it could easily become one of those videos where a parent thought that it was a fun little children's television thing and then ended up being something dark.
Right. And obviously that's not the fault of the creators,
not at all.
I think have genuinely created something that I'm kind of obsessed with, this commentary on children's television. I think the creativity one, the one that I ended up watching today, just the seminal quote that you hear of what color is it?
Green is not a creative color.
Like very clearly is like, oh, children's television often serves to just brainwash the kids watching it, I think is an interesting one. I think there are some interesting, more nuanced arguments to be made about the idea of critiquing like public access television in this way is not particularly helpful, because PBS and different publicly funded children's television is incredibly important and provides an entertainment source for children who are underprivileged and all that. So there's like so much stuff around Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared that I think we could make a whole journalistic podcast about it.
Yeah.
But I like it.
Yeah. And also it's just as a piece of horror, it is truly very scary.
Yes.
I will say I honestly think the first one is the least scary, and the first one's pretty scary, but they only get scarier as they go on. Yeah, I think in a previous episode I had mentioned that in my head, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared was not particularly horror. I thought it was more gory, but rewatching, and I watched a few of the other ones last week when we started talking about them. Yeah, just really, I think, doesn't actually fit into my ideas, my two different archetypes, in that it is not like, it's not slasher jump scary horror. It is just like true, like almost Lovecraftian horror. Yeah, it's some kind of abomination. Which is really impressive. Yeah, it's really, really impressive. And I especially like in the first one, when things start to take a turn and they turn from the puppets to these humans in costumes. That in itself is unsettling, because we had suddenly become very familiar with the way these puppets look and are now dealing with things with larger limbs and longer legs and arms. And the way that they move, the kind of jerky dancing that they do, and when they're all hugging each other in the circle is very, very scary. Yeah, it's fascinating. All right, let's move on, because I want to talk about Salad Fingers. Yes, Salad Fingers. Everyone remembers Salad Fingers. We all got dared to watch it in elementary school or middle school. So it's a Flash animation web series created by English animator David Firth. The first one was published to YouTube in July 2005 and currently has 36 million views. All right. So it follows the titular Salad Fingers, who is this green, supposedly mutated man living in this like desolate, apocalyptic looking desert world. It's kind of assumed to take place somewhere in the UK because of the accents and the mention of real places in the UK. And some people have put up theories that it's a war commentary, and this is supposed to be a post-nuclear bomb universe or some kind of post-war universe. So the first episode is called Spoons, which is probably the one that everybody has seen. There's actually 11 episodes total, I believe. The most recent one coming out recently is a year or 2 years ago. But in Spoons, it's a shorter video where he talks about his love of rusty spoons and other rusty objects. And I think the scariest and most torturous part of this video is the sounds.
Yeah, that's what I want to get to. I want to get to the sounds, so let's kind of run through the rest of these notes so that we can then talk about.
It totally blew up culturally. The San Francisco Chronicle rated it in the top 10 cultural phenomena for 2005. And this is a fun fact that I found. The background music for Salad Fingers is a theremin played by Ringo Starr, like the Beatles guy.
The fourth best Beatle and not the best drummer in the Beatles, according to John Lennon.
Yeah, but he is playing the theremin on the music for Salad Fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as we have our notes, it kind of gets back to the sounds. So this became a theme that I was looking for as I watched the rest of the videos I was assigned for homework. The sound design in these videos is some of the most fascinating stuff about them. I think internet culture, I mean, you guys are listening to a podcast right now. There is been a resurgence in appreciation for the audio medium separate from music in this internet era. And I think in horror, it does something really specific. So I personally have some kind of audio syndrome or disability or something where I get bad ASMR from everything, where certain sounds of specifically like nails on stuff, silverware, anything that scratches another thing makes me feel like I'm hearing nails on a chalkboard. It is literally the nega ASMR. It's the worst.
Yeah.
That being said, I loved the sounds in Salad Fingers.
See,
which is so weird.
That is weird. I'm totally not an ASMR person. Like, there are some things I like, the ones where it's like a little piece of fabric like next to your ear. I also I take it back. I do like the ear cleaning ASMRs. Those are very good.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't get a lot of like ASMR sensations, but the sounds in this give me the bad tingles. Like
that's so interesting. It might be because when I was watching Salad Fingers, I wasn't scared at all by it, which I wasn't really expecting to be genuinely scared by any of these. What I was looking for was this kind of unsettling feeling that I enjoy. That's the reason I really love SCP stuff, as we'll talk about. And Salad Fingers just didn't get there for me. It might be the 2005 Flash style of animation that makes me think of like The Ends of the World and Ultimate Showdown of Ultimate Destiny. But it didn't really get me, so I was really able to kind of step back and just kind of view this thing. It is so fascinating. I think that, like we talked about in Creature Feature, a great episode, the visceralness of the voices in this, the way the child in Spoons doesn't actually speak, but just makes this horrid noise, and the sound of Salad Fingers' fingers on the rusty spoon is so tactile, and it so clearly contrasts the cartoony Flash animation and does not line up with the Flash animation. It just makes for a really fascinating package that a lot of these, looking back, the ones that I like was aware of, it just occurs to me that like people were just making weird art, and in like elementary and middle school were like, oh my God, it's so scary. And it's like, no, it's not. It's just like weird art.
Yeah, I know. That reminds me of how, do you remember like when you were a kid or a teenager and you would see something go like, oh, whoever made that was on drugs. And now that I've like gone to art school, I look back, I'm like, that's just non-mainstream art.
Right. It's just somebody making a thing that came into their head.
Yeah.
and just putting it on the page or the screen. And it's really fascinating, which brings us to my new obsession thanks to doing the viewing for this episode, which is Local 58. It's a horror series written by Chris Straub.
Yeah.
And he wrote Creepypasta. So you take this.
Yeah, he wrote my favorite creepypasta, Candle Cove, which we will talk about in the creepy. Have you read that one?
No, I haven't.
It's my favorite one.
Creepypasta.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in the creepypasta episode. So Local 58 is the first video, which is entitled "You Are on the Fastest Available Route," was published on October 30th. I didn't put the year, which was very silly of me. You are on the fastest available route. I believe it was 2018. No, 2017. Pardon me. I just got so excited, but I knew it was recent. But it currently has 1.2 million views. The channel is... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Yeah. So all of these videos are set in a fictional county public access channel in which these strange interruptions are happening. You Are on the Fastest Available Route is not in this cinematic universe. But,
well, it kind of is because it's got the Local 58 logo on. Doesn't it have at the beginning like it's being broadcast on the TV?
I didn't think so. I thought it was just supposed to be like dash cam stuff, which You're on the fastest... Where is it? So I have it.
Yeah, You're on the
fastest available route is a dash cam video of a car in the rain driving along and being told by the GPS voice where to go, and ends up in an access road that nobody's supposed to be on. And then eventually they crash, and it is a beautifully done video at the end. I think there are aliens, which is really cool. And it's so good.
Yeah.
And it's all in the dark. And what I got from it is it looks, any of you other upstate New Yorkers, it looks exactly like driving down the Hudson on 9W and passing the big bridge between Kingston and Poughkeepsie, which is like, I know that was what was intended because it's not supposed to be upstate New York. It's supposed to be
anywhere.
The Riverside Highway where you are in the United States. It's like so good. My favorite of the videos was Contingency.
Yeah. One thing about You Are on the Fastest Available Route, it's what's scariest about this and all the Local 58 videos, I think, is that the way that this GPS kind of takes a turn from saying very normal GPS directions is she starts saying things like turn onto like restricted access road or unnamed road, and then like turn off your headlights. That is very scary. I talked earlier in this podcast about how I think breaking and subverting expectations is the best way to do horror. And that is so easy with technology because it's so familiar to us. We know what a GPS is supposed to say and what it's supposed to sound like. So as soon as it says something that doesn't follow that track, it's scary.
Yeah, and I think another aspect is taking things that are really prevalent and have a lot of authority in our lives. So for people that like commute or drive a lot, hearing that GPS voice is really normal, and following the directions becomes kind of subconscious. So when you're watching that video and you're listening, you're like, oh, right, it's directions. I recognize this voice. And then and not only is it subverting the expectation, but it is using this voice that has a lot of authority in most people's minds and then having it do these really creepy things. That's something that I think most of the Local 58 videos do really well. Weather Service does that incredibly well because Weather Service has an emergency broadcast system.
Yeah, which is already one of the scariest noises in the universe.
But it is also it's like the fire alarm at school, where it's supposed to be jarring and alarming and scary, but we hear it so often because we do fire drills, and every Wednesday in New York State, the emergency broadcast system tests itself. It's something that is supposed to be scary and never really is because it gets dulled over the years and years of hearing it. But what this video does so well is it makes it about there seems to be a war going on within this TV, within this system, where the warning is to not look at the moon.
Yeah.
And there's no more information given. They say, don't look at the moon, don't go outside. And then something else takes over the screen, but it still looks exactly the same. But the image says that announcement was a mistake. Please ignore it.
Yeah, go outside.
And then it turns to go outside. And then it cuts back and it says, don't look up, don't look outside, stay away from the mirror. And then it becomes people talking about each other. Like, I saw him through the mirror.
Yeah.
I became him. And then it cuts to a live feed of the moon and people screaming.
Yeah. I love Weather Service.
I think Weather Service is very good, but I want to talk about Contingency because I think it does something that the other two don't.
Yeah. Contingency, I think, is the scariest Local 58 video.
Yeah, and I also think it's the best made.
Mm-hmm.
So Contingency is this government message, which is from the Department of Maintaining American Dignity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's presented as, it's like late at night, it's like 3 a.m. on this local access broadcast, and it's like 3 a.m. paid programming. And then it cuts out, and this government message starts to play. And it is made clear that it is to be broadcast in case of total defeat of the United States in a war.
Yeah. By some, I think it says insurmountable military force, unspecified as to what it is.
By an invasion.
Something.
Yeah. And it is, there are like, don't air after 1973. So it's very, it's pretty clearly in historical context supposed to be an homage to like nuclear war messages that would go out in the 50s and 60s. So the idea is the United States has been defeated and it calls on all citizens to do their duty. And it's not clear what that duty is until later in the video. So it says, do what you can right now.
Yeah.
Every man and woman must step up.
You take America with you.
Right. Take America with you. We have been defeated, but we will find victory in living on, like having the American ideals live on.
Yeah. It's like they can never take our spirit.
Right. And then it is, we will all be remembered.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh, wait, what's going on? And then it says, place the muzzle. You need a firearm. Place the muzzle like at the roof of your mouth and fire.
Yeah.
So that's like the victory position, which is dying face up on their front lawns. And it ends with this weird like flash screen where I had to pause it multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
It says the 51st state is not a place.
Yeah.
And then it flashes away. And then there's a message from the president, and it's supposed to be Lyndon B. Johnson.
Well, yeah, that's from the beginning, but at the end, it's the station comes back.
Right. So it's saying like, oh, I've done everything. Now it's time for you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Sincerely, we love you. You're president, Lyndon B. Johnson.
Yeah.
And then it cuts off, and then the public access feed comes back, and it says, oh, we're so sorry. That was a hoax. It won't happen again. But then during that, another screen flashes with another government message, which shows that image was prepared in case of an accidental airing of the contingency footage.
Yeah.
So there's so many layers going on.
So good.
And what I think that video does best is it never stops being that one thing. I think Weather Service, by showing the live feed at the end, kind of takes you out of the fiction of it. Like, I guess the idea is that they're airing that the hijacker of the public broadcast is now just pointing a camera at the moon.
Yeah.
Which is a neat idea. But I think that like adding the people screaming kind of, it gives the viewer a connection to make that makes them feel less alone and less scared and less offset. I think similarly with You Were on the Fastest Available Route, the ending when there's like an explosion and fire, and then you can see that the screen is cracked and then there's like a bright light. I think that serves as a kind of out for the viewer again of like, oh, this is the ending of the story being told in this video. And I think Contingency just leaves you.
It really never lets go. And it only gets worse as it goes on.
Right.
Like the reveal of information is so well done.
Yeah. And I think what all three of them do and all the Local 58 videos do really well is then at the end, the credit sequence plays, which I so appreciate with these kinds of videos because I really love creepy stuff. I've never been a horror person, but like reading creepypastas, I always liked. Like the fact that then the artist is like, hey, I made this.
Yeah,
it's
you remember
really
like,
nice...
oh yeah, I was watching a short film. Like I was watching something somebody made.
Right, which is such a cool and comforting and nice way to end a video like that.
Yeah.
It's just so cool. I'm in love with it.
And I feel like it's something we often forget when we talk about scary YouTube videos. Like they didn't just end up on YouTube. Like this is an art piece that somebody made.
Right. And kind of the whole point of this podcast is looking at why we view these things and how they interact with our culture. And I think one of the most important things is realizing that these are products that people are making and putting out into the world.
Yeah. I think Local 58 is genius. I literally am currently finishing up a tabletop RPG campaign that I wrote that is based on Local 58.
That's so good.
You should check out their other videos too. They have, besides the 3 that we mentioned, they have Show for Children, Real Sleep, and Skywatching, which are all really good. Skywatching is not my favorite, but Real Sleep and Show for Children are both excellent. And I also, because of them, I've gotten a lot more into the kind of emergency alert system genre of horror, which is very prevalent on YouTube. There's a lot of like amateur video makers and amateur horror makers making like scary EAS broadcasts, and they're all very scary, and I enjoy them very much.
Yeah, just so fascinating. I'm obsessed with civic imagery just in general, broadcasts and flags and signage, and I'm obsessed with all of it. So
I knew you would like this one.
Yeah, so cool. Let's talk about the next one.
Yeah, so we'll move away from series and start to talk about some individual videos. And this video is actually a little bit different because it was not intended to be created as a horror piece. It was just a video that came out creepy. It's called I Feel Fantastic. So it was originally posted on YouTube by a user called Creepyblog 10 years ago, but was presumably made before that because Creepyblog is not the person who made it, and has since racked up over 22 million views.
Yeah, and it's this amazing woman who's a robot.
Yeah.
And she has gorgeous blonde hair.
She kind of looks like Taylor Swift.
Kind of looks like Taylor Swift. I was about to say a robot Taylor Swift, but just Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And it's this like really nice synth voice, almost Vocaloid like. You have later in our notes it says an early Hatsune Miku. It is very Vocaloid-esque. It is not a Vocaloid because it is much easier for an American ear to understand.
Yeah.
But the woman is singing a song called I Feel Fantastic.
Yeah. Which the lyrics of are, she goes, I feel fantastic. Hey, hey, hey. You feel fantastic. Hey, hey, hey. And there are more lyrics, but those are my favorite ones. Yes.
Go on.
No, I was just going to go on my next note.
No. You go on.
Okay.
We'll talk.
So she's an android. Her name is Tara, and she was originally created by John Bergeron, not to be confused with that very good boy Tom Bergeron, who hosts Dancing with the Stars and America's Funniest Home Videos. This is a different man.
Not him.
Not him.
Very sad.
She was created in 2003 by John Bergeron. And from what I could research, there's not a lot known much else about this video, but according to John, she's made from about $2,000 worth of materials and parts, and allegedly her whole base part is a dental training mannequin. And
that would explain the articulated mouth.
Yeah, Bergeron wanted to make her kind of like a robot singing star, because this was 2003. And singing robots were kind of like just a theme park thing or just a Disney thing. So his whole thing,
a Chuck E. Cheese thing.
Yeah, his whole thing was that he wanted to make a singing robot that he could like take on the road for some shows.
Yeah, so I get that. And as you say, he originally didn't intend it to be creepy, but he agreed that it was a bit spooky. Which, John. The framing of your shot is that she's in seemingly the main room of a motel, and she is sitting there, and then she randomly cuts, like, not to get blue, but, this is such a stupid reference, but in porn, they always have really weird film cuts.
Sure.
Where the two people doing it are doing one thing, and then it just cuts, and you can tell that 15 minutes have passed.
Okay,
and they're doing something completely different. And that's what she does, except she's one person. She's not a person, she's a robot, and she's singing. And she's standing, and then she's just like sitting in a totally different outfit with her legs crossed, and she's then singing again. It is so unsettling. Like it can't have been an accident. Like that is.
You think this was intentionally created as a horror piece?
I don't. I trust John. I trust John to be true to me.
Okay.
And to his father Thomas, but something tells me. But it's a very good video. I do think one of the lyrics seem to be her saying "run."
Yes, she does say "run" at one point. Doesn't
seem to be accidental. But let's move on to a video I didn't like.
Yeah, this is a controversial one.
I love Tara.
This is a controversial one. This one is called Agamemnon Counterpart. It is a short, like minute-and-a-half animation created by 2 film students, Michael Robinson and Jason Kovac, in 2001. And it was originally posted to YouTube on June 13th, 2006. It has 2.7 million views as of today. And I read online that they said when they made it, They made it, quote, both to celebrate and denounce the analog to digital TV transition in the United States. So if we're thinking 2001, that's mostly when analog to digital was starting.
Happening, yeah. It begins with the one thing about it that I like, which is, it says, in the year 2571, a video cassette tape was found in a pile of rubble on the ruins of a certain blue planet. What you are about to witness will not be the contents of the aforementioned cassette. This is an entirely different recording. Like, okay, yes, go off. Yes, wig. Love it. Like, that's a neat thing. It's a bit, it kind of walks the line between genuine creepy writing and kind of potted.
Yeah, it's a little silly.
Yeah, it's a little bit silly, certain blue planet, but like overall, hell yeah. But then the rest of the video happens, and it's bad.
The whole video,
a bunch of...
Yeah, there's no real way to like describe the plot of it. I think it is creepy, but it's a lot of kind of psychedelic seeming clips that are like children's animation, but also it's very much in the style of like the animation reminds me of like the kids on Captain Planet, that kind of 90s-esque animation.
Or reboot.
But in this psychedelic kind of warped sense. And then there's a very clear audio of a man screaming over it for the whole thing. And that's the whole video.
And like I spoke about, like the audios of these videos have been so fascinating to me. I think one of the things that Local 58 does so well is it warps and plays with the audio brilliantly. Mm-hmm. What comes to mind is in Contingency, there's the warping of the national anthem, and then it becomes My Country 'Tis of Thee. Yeah. Which I believe was one of the like songs written to instill loyalty in the United States. Like even the video that's not made to be creepy, I feel fantastic. The audio of it is creepy. It enhances the creepiness going on because of this robot woman's voice. Agamemnon is just somebody screaming with some music and like some static, and that's it. And it's so sad. Like it honestly feels like something that somebody saw other horror stuff, other creepy internet horror content, and then set out to make something like it. Yeah. It feels like the YouTube horror equivalent of an old Flash game where you would play as SpongeBob and you'd kill Peter Griffin.
Okay, I kind of see what you mean. I'm not the biggest fan of this one. I think it's okay. I do think it's a little bit creepy. There was a rumor or like a hoax going around on the internet that kind of made the reason why this video blew up was that the creepypasta attached to it was that the audio of the man screaming was from a real like crime audio of an attack on a violent attack on a Japanese student, but that was proven to be completely made up and like for the creepypasta sense, but it's what made this video blow up. And I think on its own, it wouldn't have blown up in the way that it did because it is creepy, but it's got the thing where we talked about a little bit about this in Creature Feature, where you can't add things just to make it scarier. What makes it scary is adding to the story. Right. And I think like to me, learning about that hoax is like, that makes me like it even less almost. There's like, I'm not accusing the creators of making up this hoax, but for like somebody to be watching it on YouTube and be like, oh, this doesn't have enough views. Let's create a victim of an attack. Like, that's so lame. Yeah. Like, they should have just shown us the videotape that they found in the rubble. I want to see that one. Little blue planet that you might have heard of. Called what is it? Earth. I wonder what that is. Yeah. The final video, which I do like, was Dining Room or There Is Nothing. Yeah. So this is a short horror film directed by David B. Earl. It was originally released on YouTube in 2006. It's a fairly simple video. It consists of a girl who's got like ghostly white skin and long black hair, sitting at a table with a spoon and a bowl while there's like a fire outside, and there's kind of some creepy sounding music in the background. And then she says something in a kind of robotic voice that doesn't sound like actual words. And then she face plants into her bowl for a little bit. And then the video reverses and she sits back up, and then it's the same thing in reverse. And she says, there is nothing. And then the video ends, air quote. It is meant to be looped, which sucks for YouTube because that's not really you can loop stuff on YouTube, but not in a kind of stop free way. This was on Vine. Yeah. On the director's website, he said, When looped, there is no actual beginning or end and no real sense of where the beginning and end actually are. The piece was inspired by a personal paradoxical desire for empirical proof that there is nothing on the, quote, other side of life. I wanted to blur the distinction between the two states and to state the paradox by showing someone who is coming back from life or death and denies its existence, thereby fulfilling the paradox. So in the video, she's dying and then coming back to life to say there is nothing, as in there is nothing past death. But then if you loop it, she dies again.
She went there.
Yeah.
Yeah. She like went and then came back. And like, we've all been there. We've all been waking up at 7:30 when for our 8 a.m. class, we need to have a bowl of Cheerios. And then we faceplant into the bowl for a little bit. And we wake back up and go, there is nothing. And then we stand up, we take it to the sink. Yeah, I really enjoyed this video. As you say in our notes, like, this seems like a museum piece. It seems like something that would be at the Whitney.
Yes, I totally got Whitney vibes from this.
There's an oddity to the set where it almost seems like a fake house built on a soundstage. The lighting is interesting. The performance is interesting. The face plant into the SpaghettiOs is great. Yeah, it's a simple, succinct video where like the message isn't like crystal clear, but it's clear that there is a message.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I remember the first time watching this and I didn't get this message. I just kind of took it as like a creepy YouTube thing. But now knowing the intention and kind of how the story is that she is dying, coming back and dying and coming back and fulfilling this paradox, I think it's even scarier.
Yeah, and I think it's also just makes it more interesting. I feel like this is something we would watch and then discuss in writing the essay.
Yeah,
like it feels like
absolutely.
A piece that somebody made in Tish, which is really cool.
Yeah, and that's so expert because it's so short, it's so succinct.
Yeah,
there's nothing superfluous. And then going back to what we were saying about like not just adding things that's scary, everything that's happening in it has something to do with. Like, he didn't just add something because, like, oh, wouldn't that be creepy if X, Y, and Z? Like, everything is part of it.
The idea informed the content informed the idea, and it is just the idea and nothing more. I think that's what we've kind of learned today from looking at a bunch of very good videos and then one not so good video, in our opinion.
Yeah, but the YouTube horror well is way deeper than this. This is barely scratching the surface. So if you look up, like, cursed videos or YouTube horror or like what's that thing on the internet people say, nightmare fuel, if you look up any of that on YouTube, you'll get dozens of playlists of just some of the best that YouTube horror has to offer, and most of them are really short. Like, there's some long ones like Salad Fingers or Don't Hug Me I'm Scared, but a lot of them are like 40-second little short scary videos, and I highly recommend just taking a dive and finding some of your favorites.
Yeah, I think what I would suggest, which is what I did today, if you go to something like Local 58 or to Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, and then you fall down the hole from there, you look at the recommended, that may help to kind of curb some of the like weird gore videos or real crime videos that sometimes pop up. Because that's not horror, that's not art, that's just bad. Yeah, and that's not what we talk about on this podcast.
If you enjoy any of these videos, any of the videos that you find, and the creator is obvious or it's the creator's channel, look at the rest of their channel, because chances are there's going to be a lot more of their stuff that you're going to like. The company
give
that
them
does
a like and subscribe and a comment below and check out their Patreon.
The company that did Don't Hug Me I'm Scared, This Is It, has some awesome Don't Hug Me I'm Scared videos on their Don't Hug Me I'm Scared YouTube channel that you should absolutely check out.
Yeah. All right. I think that'll do it for us.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you so much for listening to this, our 10th episode of The Great American Scream. If you liked the episode, be sure to rate and review it on whatever podcast service you are listening to us on. We are now on Spotify, which is very exciting. But if you're listening to us on something like iTunes, please rate and review us. It really does help a lot. And the best way to help us out if you enjoy the show is to tell a friend. People are not joking when they say word of mouth is the best advertising. When you hear from a friend, hey, I think you would enjoy this podcast, that actually means something, and it genuinely converts people into listeners, which is what we like to do. Adam, could you pimp our social media?
Yes, you can follow us on Twitter at Great Scream Pod. You can also check us out on Facebook at The Great American Scream. If you have a idea or a request for an episode or any feedback or any kind words or any scary words, you can tweet at us or post about us using the hashtag TGAS.
T-gas. It's not T-gam.
It's not T-gam.
For a literal year, I, for some reason, was abbreviating this show as T-gam in my own head.
So was I,
files.
so...
Hey guys, future Devin here for an editor's note. Next week will not be part 2 of the Internet Horror series. Instead, that will be pushed to the week after, because next week we'll be interviewing David Howard Thornton, who's known for his work on Terrifier, which is a brilliant indie film on Netflix. So check that out and get excited for next week's episode. It's going to be a great one. All right, back to Past Us. But I believe that's it for us here. I've been Devin Wright.
I've been Adam O'Connell.
And go get spooked.
Let's go get spooked responsibly, safely, smartly.